It's Weddings with Zita, where you'll be inspired by the experts. My expert tonight is a wedding caterer, and there's a lot you should know before you hire one.
Welcome to Weddings with Zita. Here's your host and producer, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Weddings with Zita. Food is a primary item when you're planning a wedding, and my guest today has a lot of information to share with you. She is Louise Albin. She is the owner of Cafe Louise in West Hartford, Connecticut, and she's a longtime friend. Louise, thanks very much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
This is really nice. I know, thinking about the years that we've worked together, that you must have just had an anniversary for your business. It's been over 20 years, hasn't it?
Actually, we're coming up on our 22nd anniversary in January.
Oh my gosh, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Happy anniversary, that's really great. One thing that I want to clarify before we get into talking about your role as a wedding caterer is that you are not a venue. You provide catering off-site, correct?
Correct.
Is that the right?
We're strictly off-premise caterers.
Off-premise catering, okay. So in doing the show Weddings with Zita, I am talking with other wedding vendors and finding there's so many different activities that are food related that are associated with weddings. So you have perhaps an engagement party, a shower, a stag party, a rehearsal dinner, obviously the wedding reception, and now this post-wedding brunch. Do you do all of those?
We do. What we tend to not do so much is the stag parties.
Okay.
Our food is a little more special, so
it's not beer and wings.
It's not stag food.
Okay, I gotcha. So let's get into some of the food though that you do. First thing that I wanted to bring out is something that I've heard other couples mention on some of the weddings that I've done is that they like to work with someone who incorporates seasonal food. I'm assuming you do that as well. So we're in autumn now, going into winter. Could you give me some examples of something that would fall in the category of seasonal food for all four seasons?
Sure, absolutely. For fall, since we're in fall right now, a butternut squash ravioli as a first course, a stuffed chicken breast with whether we did a stuffed squash or something, seasonal again. Summer, of course, it's, tomato to me, and everything fresh and delicious and right out of the garden. Winter still would be sort of like fall foods, some of the squashes, some of the heavier things. And then spring, you want something lighter, sprouty, fresh foods that are just coming out of the garden. Ramps, which are like little baby scallions and stuff. Baby endives, things like that.
I like the word sprouty.
Yeah.
I like that. So I know too that because of the work you do, and I know from working with you, you have a lot of creativity when you approach food. Could you talk with us a little bit about some of the creative ways you work with food? And I'm talking about maybe combining things or unusual spices or anything like that.
Well, what's fun and challenging is when we get couples that think outside the box.
Yeah.
Both with, if they want to do some ethnic foods, even though it might not be their ethnicity, but they want to incorporate it in stations, for example. Asian fusion is very hot still now.
Yes.
Whether it's from the sushis or the pad thai noodles, things like that. Brisket roasted and smoked meats, for example, rather than your typical carved tenderloin and turkey breast, make it a smoked turkey breast, a smoked brisket. So it's a little more interesting and a little different twist.
Not the same thing that someone would have had someplace else. Yeah.
Right.
I think we have a couple of photos. I think we have 3 photos of some appetizers. I think I know what they are, but I'm not sure. So we're going to show them, and I'm going to have you tell me
Okay.
what they are. So let's take a look at that first yummy appetizer. It's something that looks like little triangles. And it's a delicious, it's worth waiting for. What's this?
That was a summer vegan wedding, and these are vegetable samosas.
What, vegetable samosas?
So it's with an Indian flair, so it's a little
Okay.
pastry, and it's just filled with Indian tasting vegetables, a little bit of curry flavor to it, cumin, and it's actually served, since vegan, you cannot have dairy. It's like a fake sour cream. And which actually was quite delicious.
Okay. Now I think we have another appetizer picture, and I think I know when this must be some kind of like a crab cake or something.
It is a crab cake, and the interesting take here is how it's presented.
Yes.
So it's on a chiffonade of lettuce, which is finely chopped, and it's in this cute little clear square plate with a pretty little plastic cocktail fork and just a touch of remoulade on top. So it's just a different take. Rather than picking it up with your fingers, it's passed around this way, and you have a little fork as the vehicle.
So pretty.
So,
now there's one last appetizer, and then you mentioned just a moment ago about the Asian fusion being so popular, and I think this might fall into that category. Sushi rolls, correct?
it's
Yes.
not a sushi roll. Close.
Okay.
It's called a scallion pancake.
Oh, okay. So
It's
what
almost
is
like
that?
a crepe. It's actually called a scallion pancake, and it's almost like a crepe, and it's rolled up like sushi, and it has sprouts, mint, hoisin, cucumber, the carrot that you obviously see. Sometimes we've done them with beef, sometimes vegetarian, and it's all rolled up into this delicious bite.
Oh, Louise, that does look delicious.
They just fly into your mouth.
My gosh. Yeah, that's the thing. Yes, you have the food that flies into the mouth. That's really good. Now, I know too that obviously from this beautiful tray that you brought for us tonight, thank you very, very much. My crew is, and I am very eager to enjoy this later. Thank you very much. But I know you do lovely, lovely desserts. And we have one picture of a dessert that I wanted to pop up here quickly. Now, that looks like some kind of a little tart, a little cheesecake or pudding or something?
It actually is a savory little tartlet, but we often use the same tartlets and fill them. Right now we're doing them with chocolate ganache and topping it with fleur de sel or a touch of caramel, a pecanned pistachio, and they're fabulous finger desserts. This one is savory. It was a gorgonzola filling with caramelized onions on top.
Oh my gosh. Well, see, you put anything in that little tartlet and it's going to be wonderful. Speaking of looking at all these various things, it occurs to me, because I have a little bit of a food sensitivity myself, how do you deal with, how do you address if there's an issue of a food sensitivity, or as in one of the little appetizers you were showing to us that it was for a vegan wedding? How do you work with a couple when they have concerns like that?
Well, knowing it's very common nowadays,
Okay.
and knowing in advance is the key, rather than someone coming up to you the day of the event and saying, oh, by the way, I'm a vegan, do you have anything that I can eat? So if we know in advance, it's totally fine. I've worked with brides who are celiacs. The only thing I always say is if there's celiacs present, I cannot guarantee, my kitchen is not gluten-free. So that's a little bit of a slippery slope. However, if we know in advance, anything is possible.
Okay. What about, what if you mentioned that this was a vegan wedding, that one that you did. I keep thinking about that. What do the guests who come, surely they weren't all vegan. How'd that go over?
And I have a very funny story to tell you.
Okay.
There was a couple, actually it was a family who attended this wedding, who actually talked to our chef and said, later on in the day after the meal, and said, your food was fabulous. We actually stopped at McDonald's on the way up because we thought there'd be nothing here for us to eat.
Dear.
And it was a learning curve for us. And the food and the menu were absolutely fabulous, where we took some of those same recipes and now have incorporated them into our hors d'oeuvre menus, into our vegetarian offerings, and they're fabulous.
So give me an idea, like give me a couple examples of what you served at that wedding.
There's so many salads that we eat that are vegan and gluten-free, like a quinoa and wild rice salad with dried fruit, green onion, some toasted walnuts in it. We did some kind of Indian, we saw the little samosas.
Yes.
So like a pasta that had sort of an Indian sort of curry flavor to it. So once you start thinking, it's actually, there's quite a few vegan things that we eat. I'm sure we all eat.
And don't even think about it.
And we don't
that
even
way.
think about it.
Excuse me. What about the issue of the beverage and alcohol? Is that something that you provide, when a couple books you for wedding catering? Or how do you handle that?
I do. Cafe Louise does not have a liquor license. However,
Okay.
I partner with a couple different businesses that are fully licensed and insured, and I can coordinate it all, and it can be sort of like a pass-through.
So if a couple wanted to, if a couple came to you and they wanted to just sort of have one-stop shopping for all of the food and the alcohol, you could do that. It's just that the alcohol would actually be coming through another source that you partner with.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know.
And it often ends up being less expensive for the client versus a caterer that is fully licensed and insured and is charging per person, versus sometimes the client can actually bring in their own alcohol. I provide the licensed caterers and the licensing, and it becomes less expensive that way.
Oh, that's good to know too, because there are always couples who are looking for ways to be cost effective.
Right.
One of the big things that I wanted to ask you about was the wedding cake. And we do have one picture here of an absolutely gorgeous wedding cake. And if we could pop that one up, because it's really pretty.
That was a cake we just did recently, and I have Megan, who's our fabulous pastry chef. And this was a vanilla cake with cannoli filling.
Ooh.
And this was quite a large wedding. It was about 250 people, but the cake that we're looking at feeds about 100. So what's really common nowadays is, rather than the tiers on top of tiers to feed all 250 guests, is you have a pretty showcase cake, like we're looking at, and then they have sheet cakes in the back with the same fillings. They're still decorated nicely, and it becomes a lot less expensive.
So it's not a matter of, okay, only the people at a certain table get wedding cake. Everybody's still getting wedding cake.
Yes.
Okay. And then I would think, as you mentioned, it is another a cost-saving way to still have a beautiful display cake.
Right.
So cannoli filling, and those gorgeous flowers and everything. So those were all made by your pastry chef.
Yes.
Wow.
It's just a technique. It's fun to watch.
Oh, I bet it is. And so if we have time, I'm going to come back to that and ask you some more questions. But I do want to get that idea of the wedding cake and the sheet cakes brings me into one of the big topics that I know couples are always concerned about, and that is budget, the whole catering costs. And give me, if you can, some examples of menu items that you would suggest for a couple who has a budget with no boundaries versus the couple who has a finite budget and they really need to stick to that budget. What are some of the different things you could suggest?
Actually, we're working with a client right now, and it's completely over the top, so it's like being in heaven. So we have Russian caviar as part of the hors d'oeuvres.
That's very over the top.
They're doing stations, so they're doing an Asian station with all types of sushi and noodles and seaweeds and things. We are doing the smoked meats. We're doing smoked turkey. We're doing smoked brisket, what they call burnt ends now, and seafood. You know, seafood can be completely over the top with
the shrimp
with
and the
oyster
lobster.
bar and all that stuff. So that's sort of your over the top. Conservative budget, it might be a buffet consisting of a chicken dish, possibly a simpler beef, a carved sirloin steak or something. Some nice side dishes, but keeping it more on the simple side rather than very elaborate or many courses if it's a plated dinner.
Of course, I also know from being on the receiving end of your catering multiple times that even your very simple dishes are just spectacular. The detail that goes in, the combination of the ingredients and the spices. And I've always said one of the things that I always love about the food that comes from Cafe Louise is there's something about it that is familiar, like home cooking familiar, but extra special. It's not weird. Not, maybe that's the wrong word, but sometimes people don't want something that is so different that you don't know if people are going to want to eat it.
Sometimes I just say like simple elegance,
yes.
Food with a flair.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've always said if you want something a little special, come to Cafe Louise.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have many times. I want to talk about what couples find confusing, because I think when people get confused, they get stressed. So talk to me about the kind of things that couples find confusing and what causes them stress. And so let's say that we have somebody who is a couple not working with a wedding planner or an event planner. So what do they have to go through?
Well, the stressors are weddings are so much more detailed than any other party or event that you would ever think of throwing in your life.
They are.
So it's being well organized, there's nowadays, it's easy to find organizational books that take you step by step.
Yeah.
I think the Knot and definitely
Wedding Wire and
help you through some of those steps as well.
They do.
And it's just what I tend to do with couples like that is sort of play, it's not really devil's advocate, but I just start shooting from the hip, and I have my list of questions of what are you doing about flowers, what about color scheme, what about dresses even sometimes I'll ask.
Yeah.
Rentals.
Yeah, I want to get into that in a minute too, but it occurred to me, and I say this because I'm dealing with it with a couple I spoke with the other day. They haven't decided on a venue yet. They're looking at one of two different places, and the feel for the two places are very different. One is very rustic. It's in a lovely barn that is a wedding venue, but the feel is very rustic. And another is one of the converted mansions, on the coast. And so the feel for the wedding is very different. I would think that would or could affect the food choices. Am I wrong about that?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're in a barn, we could do some really fun things, a little more casual. Cornbread, and if you're in a barn, you think of obviously it's probably summer time and corn on the cob, and you could incorporate some fancier things versus the elegant mansion.
Yeah, very different feel depending on the venue, and I would think too. Again, this is the same couple. They're dealing with, is it going to be a sit down, which they're looking at in the mansion, or buffet? So those, I think all of those, there's so much, and that's what I want to get into. When you sit down with a couple and they don't have an event planner, in addition to asking some of the basic things so that you let them know that you're aware of what it is that they're having to deal with. But what are some of the things that they have to think about in terms of planning their wedding?
I like to focus them on what they like, what feel that they want, which you were saying in addressing with the venues, what they like for foods, what the couple are about in expressing themselves on this special day. So
that's really important, Louise. I never thought about that before, but I would hate to see a couple get influenced by whatever, some article they read online or something. Oh, you have to have this item at your wedding, and what if it's something they don't like? You want to have the things that represent you.
Exactly, and it depends who they're being influenced by, whether it's the parents or the chatter in their head.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. What do you think couples are most surprised about when it comes to talking with I don't mean you so much in particular, but anybody who's doing the catering, what do you think couples, what about that process surprises them the most?
I don't think a lot of them take into consideration the cost of rather than going to a hotel or a restaurant or a catering hall to create that special event at a park in the in the parents' backyard. There's a lot of costs involved in bringing everything in.
Oh yeah, and that's a lot more than what it might seem. I mean, you're setting up a whole kitchen.
Exactly, a separate cook tent. You need to make sure that there's bathrooms for everyone, that there's potable water for everyone. So
yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah,
it may be do it yourself, but I don't think most
electricity,
people really want to do that. Yeah,
especially if it's the caterer cooking as well as the DJ or the band coming in.
Yeah.
You need fans because it's summer and it's hot. You know, there's
or
just
you need heaters because it's
cold. Right.
You know, we have, and a lot of that gets into different options depending on the site that the couple has chosen. We have a couple photos here. I think there are two of them here with orange walls. They're from a museum gallery. If we could take a look at those. And this I thought was a very sophisticated place. What are we looking at here?
This is the Mattituck Museum in Waterbury, and it's in some of their second floor galleries. And the colors and the feel were absolutely fabulous.
We have another view of this place. Yeah, this view, same place, but you get just a different feel. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, with the gold chargers and the blue and just the little touches that they did were the Waterbury, and the Mattituck Museum are known for their buttons. So there was actually buttons on the table.
Oh, how interesting. All right, now we had one more photo. I think it's our number 5. And to me, I looked at this one and I thought it looked a little more casual, like maybe we're looking at a television screen or something on the, what is?
Just different artwork. Same museum.
It is.
Different gallery featuring a different artist.
Okay.
Same event.
Wow, now that's very interesting because it had two totally different feels depending on the room. Okay, so for the purposes of catering, and you're looking at various venues, let's say a couple has come to you and they're considering one of several different venues, what, from your perspective, constitutes a good venue for catering?
Someplace that has a kitchen.
Oh, there's a biggie, yeah. You need a kitchen. Okay.
Yeah.
Electricity, water.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of the above.
Oh, man.
However, I've been at this for a long time, so it's okay if we have to put up a tent and bring in all the equipment. And I mean, it presents its challenges. However, it's a piece of cake.
I'm thinking about the museum. That's on the second floor, right? What if a place does not have an elevator?
Oh, this place was totally challenging.
Oh.
Their kitchen, they had a fabulous kitchen, was on the first floor.
Right.
We served dinner we did hors d'oeuvres on the third floor, and the dinner that you saw in the galleries was on the second floor. Oh. And there's one elevator for everyone from guests to us. So that was quite the challenging evening. However, it was fabulous.
Yeah. It's you make it happen.
Right.
That's just what you do. You make it happen. A couple other pictures. Because we were talking earlier about the furnishings and the things you have to provide, and the whole idea of the tables, the chairs, the dinnerware, the linen, the different kinds of linen that you could provide, color combinations, all that sort of thing. So we have a couple pictures here. What are we looking at here? This beautiful white cloth.
This was at the Hillstead Museum, summer wedding. And yes, I think it was white tablecloths, and they did the deep blue with yellow touches, the deep blue napkins and yellow touches, which was very sweet and very pretty, simple, and yet it fit within the room that we were in.
Okay, and we have one more picture now. This one, maybe evening with the little candles?
And that was under a tent. So the little votives add a nice kind of warm touch.
Okay, so if a couple is coming to you and they're gonna put the tent up in the backyard, and they're going to do something like that, what are some of the kind of things that have to be rented? I don't mean everything, because I don't mean dance floors and stuff, but I mean in terms of catering. So you had mentioned before about stoves, setting up a kitchen.
Yep.
water.
Stoves,
Bathrooms.
ovens, grills.
Yeah. What about linens? Differences in linens? Because we saw some pretty ones there. Linens aren't all the same, are they?
No. But some of the local, like a local tailor rental, will have access to some decent linens, which are cut above from just the polyester.
Right.
They will get damasks and, some nice quality cotton. However, we've often rented linens from places in New York that are just exquisite. I mean, they cost a small fortune.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the colors
linen,
and the touches are just gorgeous.
Yes. I think we have one more picture here, and it was a shot of a full room. The room itself looked a little more rustic than maybe some of the others, but maybe that's just the look of the wall. Where is this?
This is the Hillstead Museum in Farmington, and it's called the Makeshift Theater. This was actually the vegan wedding that we did.
Oh,
And
okay.
given that it was summer, they have these huge barn doors, see down the opposite end, that they were
Yeah.
able to open up. So it tends to be a darker room. However, in opening up the barn doors, it brings in the light of day, so it really kind of lights up the place and makes it a lot nicer touch.
So let's stay on that picture for just a minute. So we're looking at this. So if this is at the museum, they have the tables, they have the chairs. So,
Period. The end.
oh, so you needed to work with the couple for the linens, the silverware, the
Glasses.
the everything. Oh.
Yes.
And then you do the decorations also, the little tables?
Sometimes it's totally up to them.
Okay.
It would be, we don't do them, but it would be a pass-through. I would either recommend someone or I would work with somebody that I partner with.
How important is it, do you think, that a couple work with an event planner?
If it's a big wedding, priceless.
Oh, yeah. Not just for you, but for them.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want you to think for a minute here, Louise. We only have a little bit over a minute left. How would you describe your ideal couple? I mean, if you wave the magic wand.
Endless money, or budget,
yeah, big
budget I
budget,
should
sure.
say. Flexibility, know what they want, can make decisions easily.
Yeah.
That's really key. Have
Yeah.
a feel for how they want their special day to be.
And that it is their day.
Exactly.
Their day. Yeah, I think that's a good way, I think, to end the show, because it is very important. If you're watching the show and if you're planning a wedding, you do want to be sure that it is your day. So, Louise, thanks very much. I'm getting the
Thank
signal
you.
that we're running out of time already. So I do want to thank Louise Albin from Cafe Louise for being on the show today. I'll also want to thank those of you in the viewing audience for coming back to Weddings with Zita, and thank my crew. And you know what it is that they say about love, and it makes the world go round. So get out there and start turning that world. Join us again next time. Thank you.
Planning a wedding or renewing your vows? Let today's leading wedding vendors inspire and guide you. To learn about upcoming guests and join the discussion, like us on Facebook, Zita TV. Weddings with Zita is a program of Moon River Rituals. For more information, visit zitatv.com.